Alright guys, let's dive into this thing. We are going to start with some referee analysis. Yes, always a crowd favorite. And I want to begin by saying I'm not trying to make excuses or lay the blame on officials. A lot of things went wrong for the Timberwolves in this game. You could tell me that there were some critical mistakes that changed the momentum in this game. You saw it in the first quarter, and I've pulled up this clip because it encapsulates what happened. Shai draws a double team in the post and makes the right pass to Jalen Williams for the open three. But listen, Williams gets the ball with his left hand, takes a dribble to his right, and we're going to pause it right here. Notice how he kind of gathers the ball for his shot. It looks to me like he gets a little bit of help from the defender, which means technically he should be called for traveling. I'm not joking. If you go back and watch the replay, you can see him get a little nudge that helps him gather the ball properly for his shot. Okay, let's move forward a bit. Now we're seeing the result of that non-call. Williams attacks the basket aggressively. In this case, I think the actual travel isn't as much of a concern as him getting an extra step because of it. So he drives in, throws up a shot that probably wouldn't have been there otherwise, and it changes everything. Minnesota, up to this point, has been playing with a ton of energy. They're fighting through screens, contesting shots, and this play gives Oklahoma City an 11-6 lead that they will never relinquish. I believe this is the type of thing that can deflate a team, especially if they feel they're playing good basketball and being physical but aren't getting calls. You can sense a shift happening in the Minnesota bench as they realize what just happened. I'm not sitting here to say that this would have made a huge difference in the outcome, but allowing a potential travel and then letting the offensive player benefit from it certainly shifted the energy in this game. That's not fair to either team, so I bring it up because it seems like sometimes teams get caught up in these physical battles that they forget to look for certain things. As the season progresses and stakes become higher, these little details tend to matter more. Just food for thought, guys. Alright, let's move on to something we can all appreciate. And I want to give major props to the folks at The Athletic for putting together this stat about Josh Giddey's assist numbers. During the regular season, he averaged about 6 assists per game. But when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was off the court, that number jumps up to almost 9 assists per game. In the playoffs, SGA's average has increased to almost 10 assists per game. And that number goes up to nearly 12 when Shai is on the bench. Giddey's vision and passing ability are just a nightmare for opposing defenses. It's another reason why the Thunder are so dangerous in the playoffs. Voiceover 7. How Minnesota lost their composure. The turning point of the game came early in the third quarter. Minnesota had just tied the game at 71, and you could sense a shift in momentum. At this point, the Timberwolves had fought back from a double-digit deficit, and the crowd was roaring. However, the next few minutes proved to be disastrous for Minnesota. After a technical foul on Kyle Anderson, Oklahoma City's Luguentz Dort made a clutch three-pointer to put his team back up by 3. And on the ensuing possession, Anthony Edwards drove to the basket and attempted a tough layup. Now here's the play that turned the tide. Anthony Edwards is driving to the basket. Oklahoma City sends 2 defenders, but notice how Edwards chooses to pass out of the double team instead of dishing it off to a wide-open man on the wing. This poor decision gave the ball back to Oklahoma City, and within a few seconds, they were in transition, resulting in a layup and a 7-0 run. Oklahoma City carried that momentum into the fourth quarter, and although Minnesota kept fighting, they couldn't regain control. But I wanted to highlight this moment because it marked a shift in the game. Edwards made some great moves throughout the night, but this was a turning point. Instead of finding his teammates and trusting them, he forced plays that didn't work. That's not typical of the young star. I hope it was just an off moment and not a sign of things to come. Voiceover 8. Offensive rebounds and turning the tide. If you watched my previous video, you know that I emphasize the importance of offensive rebounds. In this case, Oklahoma City out-rebounded the Timberwolves 16-11. More importantly, they converted those rebounds into second-chance points. On this play, for example, Oklahoma City's Josh Giddey grabs an offensive rebound and kicks it out to Jalen Williams. Williams cuts back inside and receives a pinpoint pass from Giddey for an easy layup. OKC finished with 17 second-chance points compared to Minnesota's 8. While these stats don't tell the whole story, they indicate a clear advantage for the Thunder. By converting those second-chance opportunities into points, K extended leads and capitalized on its dominance in the paint. In fact, The Thunder scored 52 points in the paint compared to the Timberwolves' 38. This offensive prowess proved decisive in securing the win. Voiceover 9. Looking ahead, can Minnesota bounce back? Tonight's loss puts additional pressure on the Timberwolves. With their backs against the wall, they must regroup and deliver a strong performance in Game 5. The challenge is clear for Anthony Edwards, who needs to step up and carry the team in Karl-Anthony Towns' absence. While Edwards had moments of brilliance, scoring 30 points, he also made critical mistakes. The Timberwolves will need a more focused and efficient performance from him in the next game. In contrast, the Thunder's confidence is likely soaring after winning 3 consecutive games. They'll aim to continue their momentum in Game 5. Coach Mark Daigneault deserves credit for his team's success, which bounced back after an inconsistent regular season. Now the Thunder have a chance to clinch the series and advance further in the playoffs. It's a testament to their growth and development under Daigneault's leadership. One factor that may sway the series outcome is the home court advantage. While the Thunder have proven they can perform well on the road, the Timberwolves will be eager to protect their home court. The atmosphere at Target Center could be electric as Minnesota seeks to extend the series. Nevertheless, Oklahoma City will be confident in its ability to handle the pressure and secure a victory. The series shifts back to Minnesota, and the Timberwolves will be desperate for a win. Edwards must lead the charge for his team and avoid costly mistakes. Meanwhile, the Thunder will look to continue their momentum and build on their recent success under Daigneault's guidance. The stage is set for an exciting Game 5 with implications that go beyond just the immediate outcome. Both teams have shown resilience and determination, and the question remains, who will prevail in this thrilling matchup? It's hard to find a starting point for this video, so let's just begin with this statement. Tonight's game was confusing. I am confused about Minnesota. I am confused about OKC. Some things stood out, some things didn't. Some decisions made sense, others left me scratching my head. Let's start with the elephant in the room, and that's the officiating. Let's talk about it. The one play I'll definitely remember when it comes to the officiating discussion is when Shai kind of hooked Rudy Gobert's arm during a shooting attempt. Now, with that particular play, however you want to interpret it positively or negatively for Shai, you can find justification for either viewpoint. And that's what makes these situations so complex. On one hand, Gobert's forearm was definitely making contact with SGA's torso and chest area. If Shai wants to get his shot off in that situation, he literally has to make some kind of contact with Gobert's arm. There is simply no way to avoid it given the positioning. But on the other hand, Shai definitely did a little hooking motion at the same time, which is where the controversy comes in. Look, he's an elite player who understands how to navigate 48 minutes of basketball. He took 30 shots tonight, and when you're taking that volume in a playoff game, there's definitely going to be material to discuss regarding foul calls. What you approve of, what you don't approve of, that is going to depend entirely on your perspective and what you think constitutes a legitimate foul versus gamesmanship. I try not to get too caught up in these discussions because they can become circular and unproductive. But it also feels strange to completely ignore these situations when they clearly impact the flow and outcome of games. At the end of the day, if Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle had played better, if Minnesota hadn't given up so many offensive rebounds, if they had taken care of the ball better, they still could have won this game despite any questionable calls. We'll get into their struggles in just a moment. Before we continue, let's get this out of the way. This is not a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander slander channel. So that being said, let's circle back to that clip in question. Shai drew contact? Yes. Did he embellish? Possibly. As the broadcast team mentioned, it's a playoff game. You're fighting for every loose ball, every rebound, every inch. But does that justify selling contact like that? Not necessarily, and that's the issue. Listen, I've been in those situations. I've drawn offensive fouls like that. I've been called for offensive fouls that I thought I should have gotten the call in that situation. It's part of the game. Officials aren't going to get every call right, and I don't expect them to. But let's have a nuanced conversation about it. Let us be honest about the fact that both players in those situations are trying to draw a foul, trying to get an advantage. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. Now, as far as the game itself, I gotta be honest, I'm struggling to find a lot of positives for Minnesota tonight. They dug themselves an early hole, gave up 17 offensive rebounds, committed 19 turnovers, and just never could find a consistent rhythm offensively. You can't win games in the playoffs if you play like that, especially not against a team like Oklahoma City. This loss stings a little bit more because Minnesota played well in Game 4. They looked like a team that had finally found its footing. But tonight, they looked gashed and defeated. I know that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. Their body language was bad, their execution was worse, and their energy was non-existent. I hope it is just a blip on the radar, because they need to figure things out fast if they want to keep this series alive. One thing that intrigued me about this game was the defensive approach Minnesota decided to take. From the very beginning, they put their two best defenders on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey, leaving guys like Lou Dort and Pokusevski wide open on the perimeter. The logic was pretty clear. Minnesota was betting that Oklahoma City wouldn't be able to knock down those open shots. But guess what? They did. And it was pretty effective. The Thunder's role players stepped up in a big way. Guys like Kenrich Williams, Alex Caruso, and Cason Wallace made key shots when it mattered most. That's what good teams do. The role players step up and make winning plays. Let's talk about a few of the other notable individual performances. First, let's talk about Nickel Alexander-Walker. The man was just channeling his inner Reggie Miller tonight, and that three-point shooting was absolutely the main factor that kept the Timberwolves competitive in this game. Without his hot shooting from beyond the arc, this game could have turned into a blowout much earlier than it did. There's important context behind Alexander Walker's performance. Though the Thunder were pressuring the hell out of him defensively, just like they were doing to Edwards and Randall, but Na found ways to get good looks and knock them down when it mattered most. That is exactly the type of performance Minnesota needed from their role players to have any chance of extending this series. Speaking of Edwards and Randall, their performances were, well, put it this way, they weren't good enough. Edwards finished with 16 points on 13 shots plus 5 turnovers. Randall had a rough night with 5 points and more turnovers than assists. If this was a regular season game, it might be easier to overlook their struggles. But this is the playoffs. This is win or go home. And their best players just didn't show up. That's unacceptable. On the other side of the spectrum, we have Chet Holmgren, who continues to impress me with his poise and decision-making. He's not an explosive athlete, but he's smart, skilled, and fundamentally sound. His length and athleticism make him a force to be reckoned with on defense. And he's only going to get better. I mean, just watch this block he had on Jaden McDaniels. It was absolutely huge. That's the type of play that can swing momentum in a game. And that's exactly what happened. As for the Thunder, they played smart basketball. They took care of the ball, they shared it, and they made clutch plays down the stretch. This is a young team, but they play with a veteran's mentality. I mean, just look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He took 30 shots tonight. That's a lot of shots, but he didn't force it. He made the extra pass when it was there. He attacked the rim when he needed to. He's a dynamic player, and he's only going to get better, so here we are. The Thunder are one win away from advancing. To be honest, I don't think it's going to go 7 games. Oklahoma City is a talented team, and they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. I think they're going to close this series out in Game 6. But hey, that's just my opinion. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out my post-game podcast. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.